Hello, welcome. Okay, I will go show you. They talk about me, play, Lizzie, Borden. I will go show that.
On August the 4th, 1892, Andrew and Abby Borden were brutally murdered in their home in Fall River, Massachusetts. Their heads had been split open in a fit of rage from nearly a dozen blows from a hatchet. There was no theft. There was no sign of a break-in. Their 32-year-old daughter, Lizzie Borden, was at home when their parents were killed. She inherited her father's multi-million-dollar fortune, and everyone in Fall River believed that she had killed her parents in cold blood. But in the end, there simply was not enough evidence to convict her, and she was allowed to go free. Nearly 120 years later, the case is still an unsolved mystery. So did Lizzie Borden really kill her parents, or is the identity of the real killer still unknown? Andrew Borden came from a long line of wealthy and successful people, but his own parents struggled with poverty. As a young man, he started working as an underwriter at a bank in Fall River, Massachusetts. He used his paychecks to purchase investment real estate and ran furniture and textile businesses. He was eventually promoted as the manager of the bank. Even though he was making a lot of money, he only paid for the bare necessities for himself and for his family. His fortune grew to over $300,000, which in modern day dollars is about $8 million. He married a woman named Sarah Anthony Morse, and they had 3 children together. Emma was the oldest. They had a second daughter named Alice, who died as a baby. Lizzie Borden was the youngest daughter, born in 1860. When she was only 2 years old, Lizzie's mother Sarah became gravely ill. Emma was 12 at the time, so she was old enough to remember the death of her sister Alice and fully understood the gravity of losing their mother. On her deathbed, Emma swore to take care of baby Lizzie like a mother, and she took that promise incredibly seriously. 3 years after Sarah's death, Andrew Borden married a woman named Abby Durfee. Emma, who was 15 at the time, refused to address Abby as mother and called her by her first name her entire childhood. Lizzie grew up to be very close with her sister Emma, who truly did feel more like a mother to her than a big sister. However, this backfired because teenage Emma was constantly reminding her younger sister that their birth mother was dead. Because of this, Lizzie never formed a close relationship with her stepmother. She later described their relationship as cordial, but she grew up feeling as though she never really knew a mother's love. We don't know much about the intimate details of Lizzie's relationship with her father, except that he was a very busy man, as he had a full-time job and also ran his own businesses on the side. Lizzie claimed to love him very much, but his shrewd business tactics and lack of empathy for customers defaulting on some of their loans caused some people in town to dislike him, as well as his family. Lizzie Borden's elementary school teachers described her as being aloof, so she was either painfully shy or felt as though she didn't want to make friends. She was also known for having dramatic mood swings. She could either be very relaxed and unemotional, or she could burst out in a fit of rage. This is not uncommon for children who have lost their parents at a young age, but she was severely neglected, considering the tragedy that had befallen their family. The wealthy members of the extended Borden family lived in mansions up in a fashionable neighborhood called The Hill. They enjoyed an easy life with teams of servants at their beck and call. Andrew Borden, on the other hand, rented part of a duplex for his family and waited until his children were grown to buy that house and combine both halves into a single home. He never installed electricity or indoor plumbing, even though it was actually quite affordable at that time. As she grew older, Lizzie began to learn more about her extended family who lived up on the hill. Her cousins were always attending parties and dances and went to the local theatre together with young people their own age. Lizzie wanted to join the rest of her friends, but Andrew Borden thought that these activities were simply a waste of money. He never gave his daughters an allowance to attend any of these social outings. Living in a working-class neighborhood, Emma and Lizzie seemed far too rich to fit in where they lived, and yet their father never gave them money to socialize up on the hill. They were stuck in an isolating situation, and they felt like outcasts. Her cousins all married rich men, and their fathers paid dowries to help them buy their own houses. Meanwhile, Lizzie and Emma were still living with their parents, and their only social interactions came from church-related events. Lizzie Borden really only had one close friend, and that was her neighbor, Alice Russell. Many people who knew Lizzie Borden before the murders said that she was a gentle person with a kind heart. She would leave slices of chocolate cake for men who came to her father's house for maintenance, and insisted on tipping the groundskeeper whenever her father was too cheap to do it himself. She also gave candy to local children, along with cards that were signed from Auntie Borden. Even though women were not allowed to hold a job at the time, Lizzie kept herself busy. She taught Sunday school to the local children in Fall River, and most people in town knew of her as being a very pious and a religious woman. She was also heavily involved in local women's charity groups. While she testified that she loved her father very much, Lizzie fundamentally disagreed in the way he handled his money. She also believed that her stepmother was trying to take advantage of his fortune. When she was 27 years old, Lizzie's father gave a house to his wife's half-sister for free. This made Lizzie and Emma furious because they were his own daughters, and yet he had never given them such an extravagant gift. When he realized how unfair this was, he gave his daughters the deed to the house he grew up in to try and pacify them. However, there was a strict code of etiquette that unmarried women could not live alone. Since Lizzie and Emma never found husbands, owning the deed to their grandfather's home was virtually useless, and they were never allowed to move out of their father's house. They eventually sold the house back to their father for $5,000. Even after doing this, it was still not enough to make up for the jealousy and the resentment that Lizzie felt towards her stepmother, Abby. Lizzie Borden was unhappy living with her father and her stepmother, and she spent as much time as possible out of the house. Soon after their argument about the houses, Andrew Borden agreed to let Lizzie visit Europe, but the trip only made her realize just how much she had missed in her younger years. When she returned home to the United States, she often chose not to eat meals with her parents and went up to the bedroom without even saying hello. Life in the Borden house, it went on like this for several more years. In 1892, Lizzie Borden was 32 years old, and her sister Emma was 42. Neither of them had gotten married. In the 1800s, this made them spinsters, or women who were considered to be far too old to find a husband. There is no record of why they never married, but their family issues clearly had something to do with it. Lizzie continued to devote herself to the church as well as local animal rescue. She was raising a family of pigeons on their property, and she loved them like pets. In June of that same year, Andrew purchased a hatchet and started killing Lizzie's birds so that he could save money on meat. Lizzie may have felt that her window of opportunity to escape this dysfunctional family and find a better life was closing in on her. Her father was 70 years old, and she needed to face the possibility that he may die soon. If his money was controlled by her stepmother, Abby, she knew things would get much worse. At any moment, Lizzie Borden and her sister Emma's lives were going to be over unless he did something to stop it. As we mentioned earlier, Andrew and Abby Borden were murdered on August the 4th, 1892. The events leading up to their murders may give a clue as to what may have really happened on that fateful day. On August the 2nd, the entire Borden family was feeling sick. Abby Borden visited her local doctor, asking if it was possible that her bread had been poisoned. Her doctor said that it was far more likely that she simply ate some rotten meat and that everyone in the house was suffering from food poisoning. This was not uncommon back then, since there were no refrigerators to keep meat and cheese from going bad in the summer heat. On August the 3rd, the night before the murders, Lizzie and Emma's uncle, John Morse, showed up unannounced. He did not bring any luggage, but he asked to stay the night. John Morse, he was the brother of Sarah Morse, Andrew's first wife, and the girl's biological uncle. For whatever reason, this made Lizzie Borden feel uneasy. She told her friend Alice Russell that she was terrified that someone was about to hurt their family. According to his testimony, John Morse woke up at 6 a.m. the next day on August the 4th. Bridget, the maid, cooked food for her masters and guests and served their breakfast to Abby, Andrew, and John around 7 a.m. John announced that he was going to see his other relatives in town and left the house at around 8:30 in the morning. Lizzie said that she was feeling sick, so she never said hello to her uncle or came down to eat breakfast with her family. Andrew Borden went to work at the bank around 9 a.m. According to the maid, Bridget, Mrs. Borden asked her to wash the windows outside that day, and she said that she would make the bed and do the laundry in the guest bedroom. When Bridget was done washing the windows, she was feeling exhausted from working in the summer heat, and she was still sick to her stomach. She had been vomiting in the backyard and desperately needed some rest. Andrew was feeling sick at work, so he returned home around 11 a.m, but all of the doors were locked with a deadbolt, so his key to the front door, it wouldn't work. This was strange, and he pounded on the door to have someone let him in. Bridget rushed to the front door and unlocked it. Andrew Borden decided to take a nap on the living room couch, hoping that he could sleep off his sickness during his lunch break. Bridget saw this as an opportunity to rest, so she went up to her bedroom in the attic to take a nap as well. Lizzie claims that she had to go outside to the barn to look for a fishing lure for a trip that she was taking the following weekend. According to her testimony, during that small 10 to 15 minute window of time outside, someone had taken a hatchet to her father's face 11 times. His eyeballs were cut in half, his nose was gone, and he was barely recognizable as a person anymore. Lizzie walked back into the house, and when she saw her father's mutilated body, she screamed. She called to Bridget to tell her that her father was dead. She ran next door to a neighbour called Adelaide Churchill, saying, "Oh, Mrs. Churchill, do come over. Someone has killed father." They notified the police and the family doctor, who arrived to examine the body. By that time, everyone in the neighbourhood knew about the crime. Andrew Borden's wounds were still fresh, suggesting that the attack had happened very recently. Lizzie's friend, Alice Russell, rushed over to the house to see what was wrong. Lizzie, she was hysterical and leaned on Alice for comfort. Lizzie asked Bridget to check upstairs for her stepmother, saying, "Will someone find Mrs. Borden?" Mrs. Borden was lying face down on the floor of one of the guest bedrooms. She had also been killed by an axe, but this time in the back of the head. Mrs. Borden's blood was dry, and medical examiners estimated that she died roughly 2 hours before her husband's. This would mean that the killer must have been in the house the entire time, waiting for the perfect opportunity to kill Andrew Borden. Lizzie's sister Emma was out of town visiting a friend, and they had to send a telegram telling her to come home. She had a solid alibi about her whereabouts, so the police removed her as a potential suspect. Bridget, the maid, was home, but she had nothing to gain by killing her masters. She was also removed as a potential suspect by the police. When the police arrived, it was noted that no one in the house was covered in blood. If Lizzie Borden really did kill her father, she would have blood splattered all over her clothes. She would not have been able to clean herself off within a matter of 10 minutes, especially without any running water in the house. But considering she was one of the only people home at the time, and that she had the most to gain from her parents' deaths, all eyes were on her. Lizzie and Emma Borden stood with their family members and her father's business associates at their parents' funeral. Instead of watching their parents' caskets get buried in the grounds, the police ordered the bodies be taken for a second autopsy. The police also had free rein to search the entire house from top to bottom, and yet they couldn't find a murder weapon or any solid evidence that would prove the identity of the killer. Lizzie Borden was questioned by the police for several hours, and her answers were sometimes inconsistent, as if she couldn't quite get her story straight. The police saw this as evidence that she was lying. However, her doctor had injected her with morphine before each interview, saying that it would help calm her nerves. These injections would have made her feel mentally cloudy and confused. In some cases, the drug can even cause delusions and hallucinations. Despite having this drug running through her veins, she still never confessed to killing her parents. Leading up to the trial, Emma Borden and Alice Russell witnessed Lizzie Borden burning one of her dresses in the backyard. She claimed that she was simply disposing of old clothes that had paint stains on them. She gave the police the blue dress that everyone had witnessed her wearing the day of the murders, and it was completely free of blood. They also never found a bloody dress when searching the house, but the police saw the burning of the mystery dress as a sign that she may have changed out of the clothes that she killed her parents in, and she was trying to destroy the evidence. Lizzie Borden was arrested on suspicion of killing her parents, and she was taken to a holding cell in a women's prison. The dates of the trial were from June 5th to 20th of 1893. This was nearly a year after the death of her parents. A pharmacist named Eli Bentz testified in court that Lizzie Borden requested to buy potassium cyanide the day before the murder, but he refused to sell it to her because he suspected that she had terrible intentions. When the police exhumed the bodies of Mr. and Mrs. Borden, the autopsy report showed that they had never been poisoned. It was just bad food after all. This meant Mr. Bentz's claim didn't prove that Lizzie did anything wrong. Her neighbour and friend Alice Russell also testified against her about burning the dress. However, without having the actual dress on hand, they still could not prove that there was ever any blood on it. After nearly a year to prepare their case, the police had nothing but circumstantial evidence against her, and it was simply not enough to prove that she was guilty. The members of the jury, they were all men, which was customary at the time. All of them had a very hard time believing that the same woman who was the Sunday school teacher could really be the same monster who committed cold-blooded murder. They thought it more likely that a prowler broke into the home and killed Mr. and Mrs. Borden. They only took 90 minutes to make the decision that she was not guilty. After her parents' deaths, Lizzie and her sister Emma split their father's inheritance in half, and it was more than enough money to take care of them for the rest of their lives. They could finally afford to buy a luxurious house on the hill called Maplecroft. They also hired a staff of maids and a driver to take them anywhere they wanted to go in a horse-drawn coach. Lizzie changed her name to Elizabeth after moving in hopes of escaping her reputation. In her mind, the life on the hill may have seemed like a million miles away, but the reality was that they were still in Fall River. Her reputation as a murderer continued to follow her for the rest of her life. Magazines reported false rumours that she was a shoplifter and that she killed baby kittens and birds when she was a child. People did not want to sit near her in church, and so her house was pummeled with rotten eggs on a regular basis. No one wanted to be associated with this woman who may have murdered her parents. Local children, they made up a rhyme about her murder and enjoyed singing it outside the window and went as such. Lizzie Borden took an axe. She gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Now, despite all of the criticism, Lizzie never moved away to escape the ridicule and tried to make the best of her situation. She began attending plays at the local theatre and threw parties in her new home for the cast and crew. She seemed to be particularly infatuated with an actress named Nance O'Neill. O'Neill was known for having a deep voice and a masculine attitude, which led some people to believe that the two might have been having an affair. It turns out that O'Neill was truly a great actress worthy of admiration, that she eventually moved to Hollywood and starred in a few movies. Even though Lizzie Borden was now wealthy and living in a good part of town, she continued to be single for the rest of her life. But she may have been concealing a hidden romance. The only real evidence of the latter, though, was a letter that she wrote to a female friend saying something rather romantic. "I dreamed of you the other night, but I dare not put my dreams on paper." For some unknown reason, Emma and Lizzie got into an argument, and Emma decided it was time for her to move out of Fall River. She moved far away to escape the bad reputation that the Borden name had brought them, and the sisters never saw each other again. Some people believe that this is proof of Lizzie's guilt and that she must have confessed to Emma. However, Emma left shortly after one of Lizzie's big parties in which the actress Nance O'Neill was in attendance. Some people believe that it may be more likely that she was caught in a lesbian affair, or Emma simply disapproved of her new lifestyle. Lizzie Borden continued to live alone in her Maplecroft mansion for the rest of her life. She died at the age of 66. She left a significant portion of her estate to the Fall River Animal Rescue League in her will. She also left thousands of dollars to each of her close friends and cousins. Today, both her childhood home by the river and Maplecroft mansion were purchased by an investor and turned into museums. To this day, people still speculate whether Lizzie Borden truly killed her parents, but we'll probably never know. So I really hope you found that video interesting. As always, hit that like button if you did. Why not? Also subscribe to this channel for brand new videos twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, and let us know how we're doing in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Suggestions, what you thought of this one, what you thought of other ones. Just let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, thank you for watching.
That's God. It didn't kill father, the mother. Yes. I went to little boy house that Fall River for number 2. I've been away. That the mother hates 40 wife with 40 the mother. His father 40 wife the wife. Joe say he might die. I die. Our little mother to die. His father other Alvis wife Alvis died there at the fire that he killed. Lizzie born July 1962 to 4 that it was at the side of 16. His mother Sarah July September 1983 to March 22, 1885. And blind Amy trophies and my she died March 10, it's the how way of that boy gay to began that one cái quy đó là người đó có cái bệnh đi đào và cái đào tại thì ta mà cũng cũng về để mà ta yên và cái bố bật cái gì bố cái bố lý thì ta để she died. Lizzie Bell died. Died. You see that? See? That Lizzie Borden house is down. Lizzie killed the father, the mother. The girl said that's true story. He died. Okay, thank you for the watch. Your leg stupid. Comes in leg comes in into the little they have a nice day. Bye. Ooh.